Good morning, everyone. Today we have a very poor turnout. I don't know if people are still planning to join. It's already 11 o'clock. So before we get started with the material for today, can I get by a show of hands or by thumbs up, how many managed to do the exercises or the challenges from from yesterday? Anyone successfully did the challenge, making the program run? So I will put it in the chat and you can then show by thumbs up whether you completed the task. Just thumbs up if you did, thumbs down if you did and it didn't work. Thumbs up if you did, how many successfully attempted? Thumbs up if you did. Thumbs down if you did and it didn't work. Oh my, nobody tried out the challenges. Okay, at least we have one soul and it worked, so that's good. Thumbs down. Oh, very good. Three. Oh, wow. It went from three to two. Okay. Well, you can indicate on the chat. There's a message there. So if you could just either give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down. Give it a thumbs up or give it a thumbs down. Thumbs up if you successfully run the program. Thumbs down if you try to run it and it didn't work. Okay. Okay. So only three people tried. So that's not very encouraging because it means you will probably struggle today trying to make progress. I strongly encourage you if you find time in the evening, and I'm sure you have tons of time, I will strongly encourage you to do the problem sets, do the challenges, because that's how you learn. You would be surprised. Just even doing one exercise, one simple exercise, will have a big positive impact on your learning. Second thing is about the timing. I asked for a vote yesterday. I got what seemed like a landslide decision in favor of 11 o'clock today. However, I was informed that this will conflict with another class. Now, is the turnout today an indication of people's inability to attend, or is it just a choice that people have decided that they don't want to learn? So, any comments in the chat? Come on, people, help me out here. I'm groping in the dark. I may start picking names to ask. Okay, so I have, okay, so should I do it by indication? That'd be hard to figure out. Okay, I think we will just get started and try to make as much progress as possible. I will, so today, let me share my screen so that we can see the run of show, what we shall be going through today. I think I'll just share my full screen. I don't think I just share my full screen, but the text may be a bit small for you. Let me know if it's too small. So I'm sharing my full screen, and I'd like to know by show of hands, is it legible? So thumbs up if it is legible. Can you read the text on the screen? Or is it too small? Okay. I'm getting a good indication that it is legible. So 8 out of 23 people think it is legible. Okay, fine. Great. So let's get started. So today we want to cover um, I/O atoms and containers. Now that's a lot to cover. So I'm going to move by pretty fast. In the first hour, we're going to cover I/O atoms and operations, which is chapter 2, part 2 of this book. And then in the next hour, we'll cover containers. I'll try to make it as easy to understand as possible without going into a lot of details. I'll do a lot of coding, live coding, so that you can actually see what I'm doing. And I'll be using my PyCharm IDE for that. So here I have created a new project. Let's see if I can actually do this in presentation mode without it opening full screen. I'll just close this, don't worry, so that I can have presentation mode, and I'll open that on the side. So that should be big enough, and we have our documentation on the right. So I've created a project called Python for Engineers. This is where all the code will live. I will also push this to GitHub, so you can also have access to this. I'll push it to GitHub and make it public so that you can see everything. Now, I've created a project without a file. And so this is something that might happen in the future for you. You don't have any file, you have a virtual environment, this folder here. That virtual environment gives you your own private Python. It's a clean Python. It doesn't have any packages associated with that. And we can actually check that by, let's see, how do I view that? I want to see window. I'm looking for the option to see okay, it doesn't appear here when I'm in presentation mode, but I wanted to see the installed packages. Well, one thing I could do if I want to see installed packages is I could open a terminal. So this is a terminal. If you recall from yesterday, we have the terminal. Let me just close this so that you can see where the terminal is. This button here, you can also see the shortcut key, which is, in my case, it's an Alt F12. So when I press Alt F12, that opens a terminal. So let's go back into presentation mode, and I will come out of full screen mode. And I will also open my project window. So here I am now. I have opened my terminal. Now, when you look at the terminal, you see a number of things here. Now, my terminal is a bit strange because it not only shows me that I have a virtual environment, that is this virtual environment here. Usually, it will just be the name of the virtual environment. Now, as I said, the virtual environment is sort of like your private Python. You can create as many virtual environments as you want, and each virtual environment comes as a clean Python environment that you can install packages specifically for what you're working on. So if you're working on a project that requires Django, which is a library for web development, you can create a virtual environment which will have Django. And then you could create another one which will have pandas. And you could create a completely separate one which will have Fast API. So you can create as many virtual environments as possible. Now, PyCharm makes it easy for you to create and manage virtual environments. We won't go through the details of that here, but suffice it to say that virtual environments are a very good practice when working with Python. So I have my virtual environment here. I have the name of my folder here, and it's showing me some information about Git. Now, I've configured something called Oh My ZH or something like that. It's a little plugin that makes my shell look, my terminal look a bit prettier. So that's why you have all these colors. But what I wanted to show you now is how can we see the content of our virtual environment? And I think this is important so that you can at least, once you install some packages, you'll have a way to navigate around this. So we use something called and um, pip, and we can say list. if we say list, it will show us what are the packages that are installed in this virtual environment. So just make a note of that, pip list. Pip is the Python, I think it's just Python package manager or something like that. I don't know what pip stands for. But there we go. So pip tells us the only thing that's installed is pip. Okay. And you can upgrade it and upgrade pip and so on. I won't go into that now. That's all I want you to see from here. So as I said, we don't have any files here. So I want to create a file for this class. And I'll right click on Python for engineers, or I could come here at the top and click file and click new. So if I click new, it will then give me the options for a new file. Where did that? Yes, so new. Oh, so that it opens this little dialog box here. That's not what we're looking for. We want a new file, new project, project from version control, recent projects. Oh, that's weird. They don't have. Okay, I think the best option is just to click on the folder, right click on the folder, and you get all these options. So you can say new Python file, Jupyter Notebook. I have a Fortran plugin because I was fooling around with Fortran. I also have an R plugin. I think I also have a Markdown plugin. So you will probably won't see some of these options, but Python file is what you want, and it'll ask you for the name of the file, and I'll call it atoms.py. Actually, if I exclude .py, because it knows it's a Python file, then it's going to create that file. So I will ask you to do the same thing on your ends, create a file called atoms and just save it. So when you do that, you're going to have a file. It'll start off outside version control. Okay, so it'll ask you this question. Do you want to add the file to Git? Now, I had already created a Git repository, so that's why it's asking me this. If you didn't have a Git repository, then it wouldn't ask you this question. And I'll choose add it to Git. So it's changed from red to green. Remember we said red means it is not in the repository. Green means it is in the repository, added to the repository, but not yet committed. So this is where we are going to start off, and we want to look at atoms. Now, for us to understand atoms, we're going to make reference. Let me just zoom in a bit on this part of the documentation. We're going to use this problem of solving quadratic equations for illustration purposes. So here we have a quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c is equals to 0. And this has two solutions given by this equation. X1 is given by minus b plus, and the discriminant there divided by 2a. And x2 will be when we use minus b minus the discriminant. Okay? And then that is the code that we have there. So that code there, I'm going to copy and paste, but I'll say, please don't ever copy and paste code, because it's always better when you type it. So for example, it's including this page number. I don't want that. And I need to clean this up a bit. So if I clean this up, okay, let's just do it. I'll just do it manually. Okay. So I want just to run this code. I'll clean it up like that. So there we go. Now we have this as actual code in Python. We have what's called the main function. If you recall from C++, C++ also requires you to have the main function. And then we have a number of things going on here. So we have an assignment. Whenever you have equal, we probably come across this in C++. We are assigning a value to a variable A. Now it's a bit complicated here because there's multiple things happen here. You have function composition here. We have a function called input, and that function called input will then pass its output to a function called float. And we have the same thing for B and C. And then we have a very simple calculation here of the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is the thing in the radical, this thing inside the square root sign. So we calculate that it is b squared. Now that's how we say squared in Python, minus 4 times 8 times c. And that's what we have there. Okay. And the output to the user, we just print the discriminant. What I want you to pay attention to here are four things. Number one, we have a function called input, which asks the user for input. Now, it turns out that whenever it asks the user for input, it will always assume that what it gets will be a string. So we have to cast that string into a float, provided it is valid. Okay? If you enter the value for A as Paul, my name, then that string PAUL cannot be coerced to a float. So as long as you have a valid numerical string like 7.3, it'll turn that into a float. And then the next thing I want you to see is because A is now a float, A has got certain operations associated with it. And as a float, it's a number. So we can multiply, we can subtract, we can exponentiate, and we can do so on and so forth. So that's the second thing, that there are operations associated with floats. And the third thing I want you to notice is the opposite of input, which is getting something from the user, we give something back to the user, and that's using print. And here we are using print. We have a fancy looking string here. It's called an F string. I'll just make a note of that here. This is an F string. In other words, F stands for formatted. So we can format the string inline. In other words, as we are printing the string, we can insert variables into that string. So let's run this and see that if it works. So I'll run atoms, and I see it has given me A. I'll give it, we'll try and test this for numbers that we know. So if you have an equation x plus 1 squared, the roots are -1. So I'll give A is 1, B is, let's give it -2 so that we can get, let's see what happens, and C is 1, okay? And it prints us that the discriminant is 0, okay? And it says process finish with an exit code of 0. That's a good thing. Now, I'm going to pause here and just check. Has everyone followed and got those three key points? Input, the operations on the float, and the output. Can I get by a show of thumbs? I'll just type in, I'll put in the chat input, operations, I'll say float operations, and I'll say output. So please give a like to that input float operations if it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, please keep a thumbs down, put a thumbs down so that we can then zero in on where there could be a problem. Can I get thumbs up and thumbs down in case you didn't understand? Okay, I have no response. Oh, okay. It was down. Okay. Okay, three people didn't understand. So can I ask Dhruv, could you please either turn on your mic or type in the chat what was not clear? Or Muhammad or guest. Please ask a question. So the float operations. Okay, good. Now, specifically, what is not clear? The float operations, are they new or are they confusing? Okay, I'm not getting any response. I want to open. Could you explain again? Okay, so let me do to explain this. It'll probably be useful if I open the Python console. Uh, so within PyCharm, you can also open the Python console. It's one of the options on the left. So I've opened that here. And what I'm going to do is I'll just show you that how this can be used even as a very simple calculator. I don't know why it's doing this. Oh, it's sort of, okay, it tries to keep things clean. So we know how to do calculations in maths, 1 plus 1. Now we can do 1.1 plus 1.1. So those are operations. We are doing operations, okay? Now, the thing is here, what is special about numerical types is that the operations are usually expressed as operators. Now, this is a sum operator. It's used for addition. Let's try and find, I'm going to put something in the chat here, and I want you to put an answer in the chat. Let's just try and get that. So 5, if I put, this is an operation, which I explained is the square operation. What should I get in the result when I press enter? Please type in the chat. What do I expect to get here? 25. Okay, good, excellent. So let's try that out. We get 25. Now the same also applies for 5.0 raised to 2. 5.0 is a float. Okay. Now one way to understand which types there are is to use a function called types. Type. Okay. So if type of a number, it will tell us what type that is. That 5.0 is of type float and type 5 is of type int. So these are the types. And each of the types, and this is now where the whole idea between TOC comes in. For every type, there is a set of operations. For every type, there is a set of operations. So I want us to now move to the documentation because I want to show you something. I have put together here a mnemonic. This is going to be part of your notes. Remember we said types are how we represent things in the world. Operations are what those things can do. And there are, oh, this is not correct. Boolean types are not numeric types. So that should be, that's a error. But don't worry about that. Let's look at numeric types. So the main numeric types are int and float. And I've provided a link here to the official documentation. So this is a good point at which I should emphasize. If you want to learn a programming language, you should spend as much time as possible with its documentation. That's the best way to master a language. So here we have, if I go to the top of this page, actually, if I go to the Python standard library, this link here, I put it in the chat and you can all open it. So this is an index of everything that comes with Python. And what I want to draw your attention to is this section here at the top that says built-in types. So these are all the types that come natively, naturally in Python. And what we want to look at in particular is the numeric type. So we'll click on numeric types and let's just see what we get here. So numeric types, there are actually 3 types of numeric types. One of the exercises you'll have later on is on complex. And as you probably have come across, you've done complex numbers as part of maybe ECT. I don't know if you did as part of ECT. We did a lot in my time. How to fool around with complex numbers. Complex numbers are defined by 2 values. But now we'll just focus on int and float. Let me just clear these markings from my screen. So numerical types they are predominantly the operations that are associated with them are expressed through operators. So here we have the sum operator, the difference operator, the product operator, the quotient operator, then here is the flawed quotient operator. Now I'd like you to play around with each of these. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes in your, if you open Python, try and open the Python console, not the terminal, the console. And I'd like you to type Python just like I did here. Let me just close this again. And so I come back to Python. To open this, I could either type Python on the terminal or I could open the console itself. So open the console, and I'd like you to try out for different numbers. Try and see what each of those operations do. So maybe I'll give you a question in the chat. What is the okay, what does that do to two numbers? I don't know if this takes markdown. It does. It does take markdown. So what you will do is effectively you will enter your console and you'll type, let's say, something like 88 slash slash 3. What do you get and what does that mean? So please try that out right now. What do you get? What does that operation? What is that flawed operation? What does it do? If you get 88 slash slash 3, what is the result and what does that mean? To get 29, what does that mean? Any ideas? So you get 10, Alex. Thank you for that. What kind of division is that? So that's a good answer. Yes, very good division. But what kind of division is that? Try it with another number. Floor division, Gate. Thank you very much. Let's give a thumbs up to Alex and Gate. Um, I'll give you a thumbs up. Well done. Floor division, excellent. So, so again, let's come back here and look at the numeric types. And again, just there are many operations that you can do. Some of these operations come in the form of functions. So abs will give you the absolute value or magnitude of x. Let me zoom in here. This is a bit small. Yes, that's much better. Of course, neg will get the negative. That will not change if x is positive. Actually, it won't change regardless of what x is. And then float, so int will convert whatever is inside there to an integer, and float will convert to a floating point. Complex will take two numbers and give you a complex number. So why don't we try that? Let's try that just as an exercise to jog ourselves. Again, on the terminal, there's a Python console. Let's give it a shot and see what happens if we say complex. So this gave us 29, which was the integer part of the division of 88 divided by 3. So if I say complex, now I can assign it to a variable. Let's say C is equals to complex of 17.3 and 24.4, okay? And I enter. Now that's nothing much happens there because now our variable has the value. So what the question is, what does that look like? Can you print the value of C? And what do you get? And I'd like someone to copy and paste from their Python console, print it into the chat so that we can all see. What do you get? What does it look like? Does it look like what you expect it to look like? Is anyone having trouble accessing their Python console? Anyone having trouble accessing the Python console? Just give a thumbs up if you have a console access problems. Then we can figure out. I'll show you exactly what you need to click on. So everyone is, oh, so Rubea, you're having problems. Um, could you share your screen or type in the chat what problem you're having? Okay, great. So Omolo and Andrew, let's give a thumbs up to them. Excellent. So does that look like what you expect it to look like? Yes, Rubea, I see you've turned on your camera. Yes, please go ahead. I'm here to help you. You're muted. You could unmute. And then we could try and give you. Are you able to unmute?
Sir,
Yes.
like when I try to when I try to code,
Go on.
the functions do not work. It doesn't even get highlighted. It just looks like a comment.
Okay. Could you please share your screen? This will be helpful for other people, so don't be shy.
Where to share screen?
Just 1 second. I should allow multiple participants. At the bottom, you will see there's a green arrow, a green square with an arrow facing up. Just click on that. And it will start your screen share. Then we can isolate what problem you're experiencing.
Entire screen.
No, you don't have to share your entire screen. Just share only PyCharm, the place where the error is happening, or what you're. Let's see how we're doing for time. It's 33. We have 27 minutes till the end of this hour. Oh, Florence, you're writing on my screen. It's fine, not a problem. You just clear. So, Rubea, I'm waiting for something from you. If you're okay, give me a thumbs up and then I can proceed. Okay, I will take your silence to mean that you are okay, unless you will stop me. Oh, you're sharing. Oh, sorry, you're sharing. You've started sharing. Okay, good. You're using the browser. One thing I would encourage all of you to do is install the client version of Zoom. Download and install Zoom. That'll really help. Okay, so okay then. Now, what we do is click here. This where is the Python? Is it this one? Either one of these two. Just hover over them and just hover over them and see down here. Not up there. Just bring your mouse down to where I've marked with red. So go to PyCharm, go to PyCharm, click on PyCharm, and click on the red, which the buttons which are we want the Python, not the packages. I think it's this first one here. This one here, the first one. Click on that. That's a Python console. This one here. Not there. Please come down here. Yeah, click on that. Okay, there you go. Okay, there you go. Now type 1 plus 1 and hit enter. Good. Now we did the complex. C is equals to complex. You put a number, comma, you put a number. C is equals to complex. And then you have a opening bracket. Okay. Now you need to make sure there's no space between complex and the first bracket. Good. Then put any two numbers, one number, comma, one number. It could be a floating point integer 2 comma 7 or something. Oh yeah. And then click and enter. Okay. Now print C. So type print and then open bracket, close print, open bracket, C, close bracket. Okay. Now hit enter. Oh no. Yeah. Okay. Enter. There we go. So that's what we are looking for. Everyone okay up to this point? Give me thumbs up if you're okay. Excellent, Timon. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay, you can stop sharing your screen now. Very good. And it's quite impressive, Rubea. You managed to install and get everything right. So well done, Rubea. Okay, let's continue now. So let's just get back to our notes and just make sure we are on track. So I will come back here. So we've talked about those are the operations. I will ask you, please play around with these. Play around with those. And so let's just see, let's keep track of where we are. So we have, so far, what have we done? We have talked about output, input, talked about int and float. Now, Boolean is another type and it has its own operations. So let's look at Boolean types. I have links here. So Boolean type, if I click on this, you have access to this document. Now, Boolean types are anything that take the value true or false. Actually, there are only two possible values, true or false. Now, here's the thing. The operations for Boolean are what are indicated here. When applying, so the operators, for logical operators, use the Boolean operators. And I wish I could highlight this. How do I highlight? Spotlight. Will that do anything? I want to highlight so that you can see. I can't. There's no tool for that. Okay. Or maybe this is a highlight. Shaded diamond, shaded rectangle. Ah, good. I can actually do that. So let me clear that and so that I can highlight. So this is what I want you to. So these are the three Boolean operators, and they're actually operations. So let's see how they work. We come back to PyCharm. And in PyCharm, I'm going to enter true. So first of all, I'll enter not true. What do we expect the result of that to be? Type that in the chat. If I typed enter, what do I expect to get? Not true. False. Very good. Thumbs up to Muhammad. Not true is false. Not false is true. True and true. I don't know if you've done Boolean algebra, but true and true. What does this give us? Does anyone know? Have you covered Boolean algebra? True. Yes, correct. Well done. Thumbs up. Now, you could also do, if you recall from high school maths, there's this thing called BODMAS, brackets of division, multiplication, addition, subtraction. So you can do complex things like true and false or false and true. Now that's, you can't really do this in your head, but we can calculate what that is. And you can do more complex ones like true or not, false or not, false and not true. This is all valid Python, and it reads like English, but it'll evaluate to something true. This is now where Boolean algebra applies. Does that make sense? So the key thing I want you to get from this is the operations for Booleans are these three which are highlighted on the page here. The and, or, and not, okay? And then you can have more complex ones, but for bitwise operations. I won't go into that now. That's just going to make things crazy. So that is it for Booleans. Now, strings are now very, very rich. In fact, they're so rich that now we don't deal with operators like plus. We do, but most of the operations for strings are brought about using what are called methods. So in this documentation, so this is the part where we have string. So this is how we define a string, okay? But what I want to draw your attention to is to the string methods. Now, everything here, capitalize, case fold, center, count, encode, ends with, and expand tabs, and all that. These are the operations for strings. So let's do a few illustrations. Let me do a few illustrations before we move on. So I'll clear all these drawings. Now, the first thing is, how do we define a string? Well, we define a string using quotes. And there are different ways you could do quotes. I'll ask you to look at the documentation because I described that in a lot more detail there. Now I just want to give you an example. So I say S is equals to a string. Paul is my name. Full stop. So here I have double quotes. And now I can print S. So the string S is Paul is my name. Now let's do some operations on this string. To do operations on this string, we will access the methods using the dot operation, if I can call it that. So S dot. And now we have access to all the methods. So I say, for example, I want it to be upper. What do you think S dot upper will do to the string Paul is my name? Can you type in the chat? What do you think it will do? Any ideas? Any brave soul? Capital, yes, excellent. It will write out in uppercase. Excellent, thank you. Let's give a thumbs up to those three results there. Thumbs up to Muhammad, thumbs up to Dhruv, and thumbs up to Timon. Thank you for that. Yes, it will. That's what it will do. So if I enter that, now it will show me Paul is my name. And so this is how we access the operations on strings. It's usually through dot. Let's try another one. Let's go back to the documentation and find something which is interesting. Um, so some of them return Boolean values. Okay, so we start with a string, but it would give you a Boolean. Here is one that will give you a Boolean. I want to take one which is straightforward. Is decimal. Okay, return true if all characters in the string are decimal characters. So let's try that. So S dot is decimal. And it gives us false because it is not decimal. However, if we had a string, and I'm going to do this quite literally, 5.38, that is a string. I can still access the operations of the string using the dot literally, okay? So is decimal, let's see what that tells us. That gives us false. Why did it give us false? Why did it give us false? Any ideas? Why did it give us false? Any ideas? Why did it give us false? Is there a character there which is a non-decimal character? Well, it is a string, but we are checking if the string is decimal. So the answer is actually that because of the point, the decimal point. Excellent, Michael. Let's all give Michael a thumbs up. Well done. 0.38 is non-decimal. Actually, it's just the point because if we remove, let's try and see this. If we remove, so I use the up arrow to select the previous command that I ran. I don't need to type it again. 538 is decimal. True. Now it is true. So the point is the only thing we've removed, and it has decimal characters. It has numerical characters. We could also check. Let's see. There's another. Does it have anything for float? Doesn't have anything for float. Is space is upper. Okay, here's an interesting one. Um, you'll probably like this. Write rjust. I'm going to find there's a method called rjust here. Return the string right justified in a string of length width. So let's look at that. So this operation takes width, a number, and it's got something called fill character, which is by default. This means default it will use the empty string. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. So I will take a string and I will say, for example, um, Paul is my name. And I will say, okay, I'm going to now rjust. I'll say the length is 50 and I will leave the default fill character. And let's see what happens. Look at that. So it has written out that string. That string is actually of length 50, but it has right adjusted my text. And this can be useful when you're trying to format tables. So it has done a right adjust. You can also do a center. I think there's a center option. You can center text. Where is that? Uh, Center. And it does the same thing. It will center the text. And you can choose different characters. Okay. So these are all the operations for strings. I would encourage you to play around with them. And there's a special type called none. Now, none is used, it doesn't have any operations. Okay, it's not really a type. Actually, the type is called none type, but it only has one value called none. So let's look at that. And I'll go for this, I'll go back into the PyCharm code. Okay, here, and I can say, I will create, actually, I can just do it directly here. I just say x is equals to none. Okay, so if I print x, x is none. Remember the function called type? I can get the type of x, and x will be none type. So none type. None type is just special. Whenever you don't know what the value will be, you can start by setting a variable as none. So x is just like a placeholder for saying, we don't know what this will be. Let's just hold it for now. Now, I have covered all the main types, okay? Now, I want to give you an exercise over the next 10 minutes. So first of all, any thumbs down for anyone who doesn't understand, anyone who is completely lost? Anyone who is completely lost, please give a thumbs down and we can help you out. Thumbs down, anyone? Thumbs down, you have to click on the React and then you look for the, I will give a thumbs down so that you know what a thumbs down looks like. You can actually search thumbs down. Ah, down, there's a thumbs down option. And that's me. I have just done a thumbs down. So anyone else with a thumbs down? So we are all good. Okay, that's fine. So let's just recap, just make sure we understand where we are. So we've said there are different types. Each set of types has its own type of operations. I've given you the links to the operations for numerical types, which are both the integer and the floats. Actually, we also have complex, which I haven't included there, but complex is also has the same types. There are Boolean types, which have got The operations are and, or, and not. Strings have got their operations are where are they? So string has all these methods. They're called methods. We access them using a dot. Okay, either on the variable or on the literal string itself. So you could actually write the string and then put dot at the end of the quotes, and you can access all the methods. The none type has got no operations, and it's just used as a placeholder for a known value. Okay, now I want to give you an exercise over the next few minutes, and this is what the exercise is. The exercise is, I want you to um, we want to calculate the distance between 2 points, A and B, in 3D space using Pythagoras' equation, which is D is equals to the square root of X. That now, for now, don't calculate the square root, calculate the square of D. So ignore the radical and calculate D squared. So I want you to do something like, and you'll do this in a new file. So let's just call the file problem. We'll just call the file problem. And I'll copy and I can, can I get that text? And I want to, so you create a new file. Here you could just right click, new Python file, and then you say problem one and enter. And you could add it to Git. And I'd like you to solve it there. So we're trying to solve for D squared. D squared is equals to, and we have that equation. So I want you to use the format I said before. So import sys, make sure you have this def main, and then you're going to add your code here, add your code here, and you're going to have a return 0, and then you're going to have if name is equals to that, and then you have sys.exit main. So this is the boilerplate that you'll use for your code, and you'll add your code here. I can copy and paste this into the, no, I want you to type it so that you learn about it repeatedly. So this is what I'd like you to use as your boilerplate and then solve the problem in there. So I'll give you 7 minutes to try and solve this, and we'll come back and continue. Let me grab some water. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Okay, so how are we doing? Is anyone brave enough to show us what they've written? Even if it fails, we can always debug and try and figure out what the problem is. That will be so helpful to everyone in the class. So who's brave enough to share their screen, walk us through what they've written? I promise we'll give you a huge round of applause. Programming is the kind of thing that you have to do actively. You have to actively program. You cannot just watch others doing it. You have to try things out and then you see it fail. So anyone. Okay, so who has not been able to write this program? Give me a thumbs up if you've not been able to write this program. Okay, Alex, thanks for being brave enough. Now, Alex, if I could just ask further, what, so first of all, if you're assuming you have tried, what part has given you an error? And maybe you could paste the error in the chat. Or anyone, paste the error in the chat if you've had an error. Has anyone succeeded in running this program? So I've given you the boilerplate, and all we need to do is add the how we shall do the calculation. Okay, no response. So I will write the code for you here. So let's just walk through this. So we have two numbers here, A, which is made up of three values, x1, x1, y1, and z1. And we have a number B, which has x2, y2, z2. Now, if you have code completion on, please turn it off. I think you can go to settings and turn that off. We don't want to use any of these features. We have to disable any code assistance. So please disable that if it's there. Just we don't have time to do it right now, but maybe afterwards. Disable. Make sure you don't have that. So we want to make our number A, and our number A has got x1, which is equals to, we'll get the input from I don't want it to have this. I need to disable this. Let me just disable AI assistant. Provide name suggestion, generate GitHub plugin, AI assistant, data sharing. I hope that works now. I don't want any suggestions. A1 is equals to x1. Okay, notice I've just added an extra space there. I'll do the same thing for, let's just calculate the first part. X2 is equals to, it's still doing it. Sorry, I'll have to disable this, but I don't want you to rely on this. I want you to. So when we are calculating our d squared, we are calculating d squared is x1 squared plus x2 squared, okay? And we can print out what our value so far of d squared is. So we use f, and we open the string. So this is a special string, and we put in our variable in curly braces, d squared. Okay. Now I'm going to run this program, and let's see what happens. Okay. Let's see what happens. So I run this, run problem one. It asks me for x1. Okay, good. I have, let's say first point is 5.3, the second point is 7.4, and I run that, and oh my, I get an error. So this is good because it gives us a chance to understand what has happened here. So this is what's called a type error. A type error means there's something about this type that doesn't match with some of the operations that have been done. And here it says unsupported operand for that operator, operation or power, string and int. So let's just drill in and see. Now, whenever we get an error, it actually gives us links. We can actually click on this link here. The last link is where the error actually occurred, and it's even pointing us to that. So if you click on that link, it will bring the cursor here. You see the cursor is blinking where where right here. And it says that here I have x1. I know that this is an integer. And I want to know what is this actually? So this is where our type function can come in handy for debugging. So we can print the type of x1. Okay, let's try and run that again and see if we can get more useful information. So I had 5.3, 5.3, and 7.4. Now those look like numbers to me, right? Ah, there we go. So at this point in line 11, it's a string. So we have a string raised to 2 on line 12. If we click on that, it will show us line 12 is where the problem is. That is the wrong type. So now we see why we needed to do the floating. This is called coercion. That's why we needed to coerce or cast the string into a float. So that's what we'll do here. So we'll do float and we'll do float. Okay, now let's try that again. If we run this program, we run, and again, I give 5.3 and 7.4. Aha, now it's a float. We print the type. And now we have a value for d squared so far. So I've given you that much. I want to give you 5 minutes to complete the calculation of the distance, at least d squared. Please try and complete. Just use what I've given you and now add to that. Can you calculate the value of d squared? So 5 minutes will be, I will come back at 12 past. Okay, how's it going, guys? Anyone managed to finish this problem? Give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up, anyone? No one has managed to finish this problem. So I don't want then to go into something more complicated because my plan was to now talk about containers, but I'm worried that if I talk about containers, that I will completely confuse you. So I would much rather than postpone containers and maybe we can work on a few more problems. But I want everyone in the class to try this out. So please, everyone, type out what you've seen there. And I want you to try and run it. And I want us to find all the problems. Then we can do an exercise with strings as well. Okay? I would much, much, much rather that we do that. Who has tried it and has had a problem? I'd like to know someone who's tried it and had a problem. Now is your chance, guys. Now is your chance to get help while I'm here. The moment I go, I'm not going to cover this again. So please, can I pick on someone then? I'm going to pick on someone then. Okay, so let's see. So Muhammad, Said Muhammad, can you please tell us where you are? It's not for victimization, it's just to help you at least get some traction, some movement. You Said, can we hear from you, please? Anyone else? Oh, you're almost done. Okay, good. Okay, I'll wait. Thank you for that. Anyone else who's finished? Brian. Brian, can you please tell us where you are? You're done. Cool. Did it work? Great. Okay. Could I ask you to be brave and share your PyCharm so that we can just have a look at it so that everyone else can learn from you? Just only PyCharm. Don't share your full screen, just PyCharm. And it will be very illustrative for everyone. Oh, I see some people have joined with mobile phones. You're not going to get anything done with that. Okay, thank you, Brian. Fantastic. This is amazing. Well done. So you have float, and then you have that. That is beautiful. Now, aha. So you've actually pointed out something which was actually an error with my code. So the distance, let's see, it was x1 minus x2, x1 minus x2, x1 minus x2 squared. Yeah, that's actually right. I actually even did it wrong in my example here. This should be x1 minus x2 squared. X2. Now we should have the brackets. So this is now where the BODMAS comes in. X1 minus x2. Um, so that gives us that value for that component. If we run that, 5.3, 7.4. That is amazing. Well done. And in fact, well done for completing it with the correct equation. The only thing I'll ask you to do is just change. So, well, actually, we can just adjust something small here. We don't want it to be x1 minus x2 squared. So we want it to be, let's just mark that. Yeah, so if you could share your PyCharm. Yeah, so it should be x1 minus x2, and then we square that. So this, we should remove this here, and then we have the squared, and then plus y1 minus y2, it doesn't matter the order, and then again squared. So you're on the right track. I think I have confused with you with what I have done. Mine was wrong, and therefore, please don't follow mine. But what you've done, excellent, top marks. Very good, very good. Anyone else who would love to share their screen? Thank you, Brian. Thumbs up to Brian. Let's show him some appreciation. Like he's really advanced our thinking in the class. That's very good. Well done, Brian. Anyone else? Can I ask Janet? Janet, where are you, Janet? Janet, can you type for us in the chat and tell us where you are? Come on, guys. This is your chance to learn. You need to. Can I ask Florence? Uh-oh, has Florence dropped off? Okay. Okay. Oh, there you are, Florence. Where are things for you, Florence? Are you stuck? Are you okay? Have you managed?
My code has some errors.
Good. I'd love to see that error. Please share your screen. Just PyCharm. Let's see what the error is. We can all learn from you, so please don't be shy. Yes, Michael. Oh, you're doing it on your phone. Okay. Okay. So first of all, that's very brave of you. I would really strongly encourage you, please use your laptop. I was informed that all of you have laptops. So D is equals to that. Okay, okay. And D is okay. Oh, fantastic. Well done. Well done. That is very good. Excellent. Well done. Thank you. If you can see that in the chat, I don't know if everyone can see that, but he has also gotten the square root, but raising D to 0.5. And then he's printed D. Well done, Michael. Let's give him a big thumbs up. Well done, Michael. That's really, really good. Now, please use your laptop and install PyCharm. Okay, anyone? Oh, Florence, thank you for sharing your screen. So click on PyCharm. Thank you so much. Aha, good. This is wonderful. So, okay, this is a good illustration point. So first of all, well done for typing it out. I really, really appreciate that you have taken the time to do this. Now, the reason you're getting an error, so you've got a special error there. Let's just highlight that. Just hold where you are. This is a syntax error and it says invalid syntax. Okay, so that is pointing at line number 6. Actually, if you click on this link, it will actually put the cursor on line number 6. If you click on that, just click on that with your, it should, there we go. So you see it automatically brought you there. So what it's saying is it's identifying this phrase here, one usage. That is not Python. So what we need to do is delete that as the first thing. So just put your cursor there and delete that one usage. I would also ask you to delete this space in between the closing parentheses and the colon. Okay, now let's run it again and see what new errors it will give us, if at all. Okay, so it now gives us a new error, indentation error. And it says it expects an indented block after a function definition on line 6. So if you scroll up to the top a little bit, to line 6, so this is what's called a function definition. So this defines a function called main, and then we have the colon. Now, what it expects from this point onwards up to the end of that function is it expects all that to be indented, to be entered one tab to the right. So here's what you're going to do. So what I'll ask you to do is just scroll up a little so that we see the full function body. Uh, Scroll the other way. Yes, very good. Down a little bit. We just want to see the full function. We want to see line 6 up to line 18. Okay, beautiful. Now, what I'd like you to do is to select line 7 up to line 18. Just drag your cursor over that. Very good, excellent. And then hit the tab key. The tab key has got a symbol that looks like that. So hit the tab key. That should indent all that code. It's on the keyboard. It's typically on the top left. Excellent, excellent. Now, let's try and run it again. Okay, now we have a new error. We have a syntax error, and it tells us it's on line, I think that's line 17, or what line is that? Let me just clear. On line 16, if you click on that, there we go. It says, so we have ended that hanging. So we are missing an operand for that. So we need to put here, here, and here, we need to put 2. You need to go back to PyCharm. Yeah, just click here, add a 2 after the double asterisk. So we are saying x1 minus x2 squared and y1 minus y2 squared. We have to add a 2 here. And we have to add a 2 here. And we have to add a 2 here. Very good. Very good. Excellent. And then let's try and run it again. Boom. There we go. Let's give it some numbers. So there are 6 numbers we need to pass. So we just enter maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It doesn't really matter. Well done. There we go. D squared. Well done. So that was a very important illustration of how we do debugging and how we understand the errors. So the errors in Python they always have a name. They will be either a syntax error. We've seen an syntax error. We've seen an indentation error. We've seen what else? We saw the first one. I can't remember what it was, but I think we have an illustration. We have a table in the documentation on page. Debugging. So here's a section on debugging. Oh, it's not here. That's interesting. Different types. Okay. I don't know where did I put the different. Okay, I don't have it here. But anyway, if you go through the documentation, you're going to see that. So thank you so much, Florence. That has been so instrumental. Can everyone show her some love, give her a thumbs up, just to encourage her for being brave and showing us. And I hope that has been helpful. I hope that has been helpful because it has unearthed just a lot of things that you can. So thank you so much, Florence. Anyone else have any problems, or can we now do a little bit of an introduction of containers? Okay, so let's look at, we're going to do an introduction of containers and then we'll continue from here on Friday. So I would encourage you to finish that problem. Please, at least try out that problem. So let's look at containers and the fundamental idea behind containers. So I'm going to run this as a slideshow so that you can see. So we've talked about atoms. Now, atoms were the 5 types, or the 5 or 6. We looked at integers, floats, we've looked at booleans, we've looked at strings, and we've looked at none. Now, they're called atomic because they are just the way you think of an atom. They are indivisible, okay? But if you want to do a lot of practical things, you now need containers. Containers are like bags. They take either atoms or even other containers. So the thing about containers is there are some 3 key problems that you need to solve with a container. Whenever you have a container, just think about like a bag. What can you do with a bag? Well, you can do 3 things. One is you can put things into the bag. So that is the insertion problem. We need to insert things into the container. Once you put things in the container, we want to retrieve things from the container. And then third, we want to handle things within the container. How do we handle things with the container? Okay. And the things that we put in container, we shall refer to them as members. So the members of a container are what we are interested about. Okay. Now there are 2 containers I want you to understand. These containers stand for, there are a lot of other container types, but all those others just follow either one of these 2 types of behaviors. And the 2 containers are lists and dictionaries. So I want you to think of lists as sort of like a sequence of things, like slices in a loaf of bread. And dictionaries are like a phone book in your phone. The reason why we use this idea is because whenever we put things into a list, they are not easily accessible without looking inside the list. So unless you know what's in the list, getting things from a list is not straightforward. On dictionaries, on the other hand, once you put something in, you can retrieve exactly what you put in because you can choose how to identify it. So just like in a phone book, we save the phone numbers in a phone book using a name. So it's the same thing with a dictionary. We'll use a name to identify the things we put into the dictionary. So whenever you're searching for someone's number, you don't go looking through the numbers sequentially and saying, okay, let me check. I know it was at the bottom. No, you just enter the name. We have a search box at the top here. And that search box will filter out and just give you the names that are associated with that. It's the same idea with dictionaries. So here's now, we've said that these are 2 container types. So the key thing now we need is what are the operations associated with each type, okay? So let's look at the operations associated with each type. I will have to click that. Okay. So now when we look at operations associated with each of these types, the list is what is representative of what's called a sequence type. It's when things are just arranged as a sequence. There is no particular order. And that introduces a number of problems. How do we find things how do we find things within the sequence type, the list, for example? And that's what the operations will be. The same problems, we talked about the three problems: inserting, retrieving, and working with the members of the container. So let's look at what the sequence types, what the operations on a sequence type are. So there are several types of sequence types. There's list, tuple, and range. We will ignore the tuple and range because they behave very, very similarly to a list. And we'll just focus on lists. So when we deal with lists, we have several operations. We have operations which are represented by the word in. So we can check is X is in S. So let's do this practically. And I'll do this in my PyCharm console, Python console in PyCharm. So I will open, let's just open that again, tools, I'll open the console. So here we are. So now so S stands for a sequence type, and we shall make a list. So I'll say my list is equals to, and I can do it several ways, but the simplest way is to do it literally. I'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that is a list. Okay, now I can print my list. Again, we can now do some output with our list, and that's what our list looks like. Okay, now let's look at some of these operations. I can check if 4 is in my list. Now, what do we expect the result to be? What is the type of the result? Can we type it in the chat? What is the type of the result? What do we expect that type to be? Boolean. Excellent, Muhammad. Excellent. So we'll get not a Muhammad. We'll get a Boolean. It will either be true or false. And here we get true. Okay, so thumbs up to Muhammad. We can also check if it is not in. So we can say, is 1 not in my list? So you can check for exclusion. Now we are checking if it's not included. False. It is not true that 1 is not in my list. That's a bit of a double negative. Then you can concatenate two lists using the plus operator. This is an operation that uses an operator. So if I have another list which has got 7, or let's create it now differently. List, and I can say 7, 12, 13, 14, okay? So now we have another list. I can print another list. And now we can concatenate my list with another list. And now we get a new list. We haven't assigned it to something. We can say new list is equals to my list plus another list. Now we can print the new list. So we're just looking at the operations. Now, we've created a list. We have checked whether something is in the list. Let's look at, we can add a list to itself using this operator. We can multiply a list. So for example, if I had a list 37, 42, and I multiplied it by an integer, n is an integer, let's say 6, what do we expect will be the result? I want you to try this out in your Python console, and I want you to print the result you get from multiplying a list by an integer. What do you get when you multiply a list by an integer? Okay, can you please print the result, Jordan? Thank you for that. But what do you, I want to see the literal result. Okay, very good, Brian. Thank you, Brian. So thumbs up to Brian. Very good, Kelvin. Thumbs up to you. Yes, we just get the list repeated, a new list with the members repeated. So now let's try and get something from a list. So now this is where it gets interesting, but you should be familiar with this. Whenever you have a list, so let's start off with this list here, my list here. My list had got how many items? 5. Now, for us to pick individual items from the list, we use the indexing operation. So the indexing operation is what we have next here, the item, and we start counting from 0. So this item here will have an index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4. So if I want to get the last item, I will say my list, and I get the last item, which will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll get the fourth item. And I can now, well, if I don't print it, it'll print it by default. So I get the 5 as I expected. Okay. I can get more than one item by using the slice operator. So I can say my list, give me number 2 up to and excluding number 4. So don't give me, so give me the second item, give me the third item, but don't give me the fourth item. So the last index means exclude 4. But include 2 and 3, exclude 4. So they will only give us 2 values, 3 and 4, as we expect from here. So that is index 0, 1, and then we are getting 2 and 3, and we exclude 4. Make a note of that, because these are some of the subtle things. You can also choose the stride, the step. I'll leave that for you to experiment. Another operation that we routinely need to do on lists is we get the length of the list. So we can get the length of another list, and we'll get that it was 4 items. Another list had 4 items, and that's an operation we can do on a list. We can get the minimum, the smallest. We can get the maximum. Let's look at this operation here, index. So I'd like you to try this out. We want to get the index for a particular value. So suppose we needed to get number 12. I'd like you to type in the chat. What will you enter? So let's do this. It's going to be another list dot index, and we want to get, I'll just do it for you, number 12. What is the index of number 12? Now we can figure out what the index is here so that we can compare with the result we'll get. This is index 0, index 1. So we expect it to give us 1. And that's what it gives us there. That's another operation. And then you can also count things that are on a list. Now, so these are the basic operations. There are some very specific ones which apply only to lists. So let's scroll down here at where we have lists. So we can sort on a list. Oh, that's interesting. Okay then. So lists are what we call mutable sequences. So let me add this to your documentation so that you can list sequence types and also mutable sequence types. Just memorize it for that, like now, for that, like that for now. So for mutable sequence types, mutable means we can mutate them, we can change them. So we can change items. So for example, we had my list. So if I show you what my list is here, it shows that those values. I can mutate the contents of my list. I can say my list, and I can say I want to change the 4 to a 7. So I get the index 0, 1, 2, 3. I want to change index 3 to a 7. So it's mutable. And these are the others. We can delete items. We can do the same thing, mutate a slice, set all the values to a certain value, all the certain positions to a certain value. We can delete all positions in a certain value. Same thing for the stride. One of the methods that we use a lot is append. So I've given, here's a list. We have my list. I'd like you to use append to add the number 66 at the end of the list using append. Let's try that out. I'll give you 2 minutes to try that out. Is anyone completely lost? Just give me a thumbs up if you are completely lost. I want to see anyone is completely lost. We are moving very slowly here so that we can just make sure everyone gets the key points. Anyone who is completely lost. Okay, I will assume that the silence means that everyone is following. So we want to append the number 66. Can someone type in the chat what they will have to write to get that? So we have my list has got 1, 2, 3, 7, 5, and we want to, or 4, 5, it doesn't really matter, but we want to append the number 66. How would we write that in Python? Excellent, Eugene. Let's all give Eugene some thumbs up. That's correct. My list would append 66. So if I do that literally here, my list, we are using the append operation, 66. And now my list, if you looked at my list, it's changed. It now has 66 at the end. Okay, so let me just go through the documentation and let's just make sure we have. So we're covering a lot of material, but if you go back, you can actually run this code and try this out to see what's going on there. So for lists, we've said we create them using the list function or the list constructor, and we can do several things. So if you read through this, you'll find all the instructions. So we've tried around with the append. Okay, I have shown you how to retrieve members from a list using the index. Okay, we start counting from 0 to 9. Okay, so once you read through this, it'll actually be quite straightforward. Now, there are two groups of operations on members only and operations on or between lists. We've seen two examples of that. We've seen an example of operation on members. We've added a member. And we've also seen operations between two lists. So we have my list with another list, created a new list. Okay, so you read through that and see I've grouped them for you to make it very easy. Reading, these are all operations that are operations on members only. I've categorized them for you very nicely there. And then operations on or between lists, I've also categorized them there. I've just basically classified the different operations. Okay, so we have got 14 minutes till the end. I'm going to introduce dictionaries as another kind of container. So lists, as we said, they're like a loaf of bread. You have just a sequence of things. Now, dictionaries are different and we define them differently. So there are several ways to define a dictionary. All that matters is that if you can use at least one of them, and that's what I'm going to show you how to do. So for a dictionary, we're going to create my dict is equals to, and we can create an empty dictionary this time. So I've created an empty dictionary. We can prove that it is empty by getting the length of the dictionary. And we get that the length is 0, nothing in it. And now this is where we begin to see how it behaves like a phone book, because you can choose the index that we can use. So my dict, and I'll choose, let's say I want a phone number for Paul, and I can assign that, and I'll say it is, let's say I'll make it a string, 07 22123456. Now, if I look at my dict, I can now see that I have that the index Paul has got that value. Now, if you use Paul again, but change the value, it will just overwrite the value there. But just in the same way, you remember when we said if the value was in, if we said for the list here, we came here and we asked, is 4 in my list? We used in. In was checking for membership. We can do the same thing with a dictionary, but we use the key. So we say, is Paul in my dict? And we get true. Okay? So what have we done here? We have created a dictionary. We have checked the length. So that's an operation on a dictionary. We can add something to the dictionary, and we can then view what the dictionary looks like. It has these special curly braces where it shows you the name of the key, that's called the key, and the value. Okay? And we can check membership of the dictionary. Okay? So let's look at the operations on dictionaries. They're called mapping types. That's the literal name that we use for them. So I'll come back to the documentation here. We'll go to mapping types. So this is a dictionary is the only mapping type. It returns a dictionary, okay? But now we're looking for the operations. So this is the list of operations that dictionaries support. We have a list. You can turn the keys into a list. So you can actually change a dictionary into a list in which the content of the list will just be the keys. So let's add something else here. So my dict, I'll add another person, and I'll say Brian. Now notice here, I'm using single quotes for the string before I use double quotes. So strings can be created using either single or double quotes. Okay, my dict is equals to Brian, and I put Brian's number 0733 12345 Now, if I looked at my dict, I will see now it has 2 phone numbers, and I can retrieve them. So if I can say, I want to see the number of Brian, my dict, Brian, and I get the number directly. So what I want to do is I want to get the list of my dict. And what I get is the list of keys. That's what that operation does. We've looked at length. We've looked at how to return an item. We've looked at how to set an item. You can also delete. We have checked about in, and we also can do not in, which is the inverse. It's the same as not key in. Now, I'm going to leave some of these for you to experiment with, to try out. But that is the heart of what we need to do with dictionaries. So let's just go back to this screen and just remind ourselves about containers. So containers, as we said, let's do this as a slideshow again. I don't have it as a slideshow anymore. So remember we said containers are different from atoms. Atoms are the smallest units, but containers can now be compound. Some documentation will even refer to them as compound types. And we've seen how to insert items into a container. We've seen how to retrieve items from a container. and we've seen how to handle items within the container. There are different kinds of methods, and we call these members of the container. So we have 9 minutes. I want to give you a little exercise just to help you cement this in your minds. We won't have a lot of time for this, so I'll ask you, try to be as proactive as you can. So let's you look at from the document, let's not look at that. I'll ask you to try out the tasks. So we have these are operations on dictionaries. Okay, let's try this out, this task here. The dict from keys method. So this is the dictionary that you created. So for example, here, instead of using dict, you're going to use the name of your dictionary. So my dict from keys, that's how you would write it, okay? So whenever you see dict from keys or D, whatever, that's just the variable that is a dictionary. And of course, you can test if something is a dictionary with type, my dict. And it tells us it's a class dict, which is a dictionary. So what I'll ask you to do is create two lists. So we'll one list called keys, and we can give it the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then we'll say values, you do in reverse. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Now we are going to create a new dict. And I want you to do this new dict. Actually, I think you can just say dict from keys, because we are creating a new dictionary and we say keys values. So let's try that out. Literally, so keys is equals to that, values is equals to that, and then you say dict from keys. It would be good if you could, if it's an error, let's learn from that error. If it's not an error, let's see what we get. So try that out. Maybe we should assign this to a variable. We'll call it new dict. New dict. Now I'd like someone to print, what do you get for the value of new dict? If you did print new dict, what will you get? I've just used a colon here, a semicolon, to separate these two distinct lines of code. So I'll give you 2 minutes to try that out. Anyone succeeded in printing new dict? What does new dict look like? Or if you get an error, print the error, copy and paste the error into the chat. Anyone succeeded? Oh, great. Okay. New dict is dict from keys, keys values, print new dict. Okay, interesting. Okay, I didn't anticipate that this would happen, but that's cool. So it actually repeats the values. Very good, Joanne. Very good, Kelvin. Well done. Um, very good, Omolo. Yeah, so it actually repeats. Now that means that, so there are two things that I want to highlight here. Number one is you can have a list as a value in a dictionary. You can put literally everything, anything as a value, even none. And you can do some very complex things, which maybe you'll touch upon later. You can put classes inside. You could put anything there. And we have the values that were from the first list became the keys. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the first thing I want you to notice. The second thing I want you to notice is the order in which the items were in the keys is the same order in the dictionary of the keys. So the first key became the first key. The second key became the second. This is what's called ordering. The insertion order is preserved. Now, this is it's something that it was not always this way in Python, and only if I think from 3.8 they made it part and parcel of how the ordinary dictionaries behave. And that's really useful because it's almost like the way when you insert things into, when you append into a list, the order is preserved. The same thing with dictionaries. So I think we should stop there for now. I'm going to stop here. Any questions? Any questions? Please ask them now, or you're going to miss your chance. So please ask any questions. Even you can type them in the chat. Has anyone, like, what are your sentiments? Like, if you are, I'd like to really know what the pace of this is. So on a scale of 1 to 5, can you please type in a value of your 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 ability to follow the content of this class? 1 to 5. Just to, okay, 3. Thank you, Michael. Muhammad, thank you. Florence, thank you. Brian. Okay, that is very encouraging. That is very encouraging. I'm glad that most of you are following along. Okay, any comments, any suggestions on how to improve this? Okay, so just to be respectful for time, I'm going to stop here. I'll share the recording like the other one, and I'm going to then post for you some problems for you to try out in the on your own. Please try and go through the material. Now that we've gone through the whole all these two topics, and it was quite ambitious. Um, if you go through the material, you'll find it quite straightforward because I've covered virtually everything. You just need to be familiarizing yourself with a few extra details. And then for each of the chapters, there are some problems at the end. So I'll just add those, mark those as things that you should do. So at the end of part 1, we have got 4 problems. There's a bonus problem at the end. And at the end of part 2, we similarly have a problem which is related to the example that was at the beginning. Okay, then, let me say thank you and bye for now. Have a good rest of your day. Sharing. Okay, bye.